I recently discovered the Trans Rights Readathon, and I am super excited to be participating for the first time this year. I will be talking about what the Trans Rights Readathon is. I will be giving some recommendations of trans stories and talking about my TBR for the Trans Rights Readathon. So the Readathon goes from March 17th to March 31st, which March 31st is Trans Day of Visibility. The purpose of the Readathon is to uplift trans voices. So there are multiple ways you can participate in the Readathon. You can read books by trans authors or books that feature trans characters. You can donate to local organizations or national organizations that help trans people. This Readathon is partially a fundraiser, so even if you don't have time to read books, you can donate to these organizations. And lastly, you can participate by uplifting trans voices. I will be trying to do all three of those things. Starting with uplifting trans voices, I will be talking about some trans stories that I read and recommend, and I will be talking about my TBR, which I went into this, I was like, I'm only going to pick 2 books, and now my TBR is 5 books, and I'm calling it my pile of possibilities because I don't have time to read 5 books during the Readathon. I will note, though, that the official Trans Rights Readathon challenge on Storygraph goes until December 31st. So there is a lot more time to be reading from trans authors and stories about trans characters. So if you don't have time to participate right here at the end of March, you're welcome to participate all year long. Also, I will be linking the Storygraph challenge and the official Trans Rights Readathon website in the description so you can find out more information about all of this. Going into my recommendations, I will start with A Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School. This book is written by a trans author, but the main character of the story is not trans. This was such a heartwarming story, though. I read this book, I think it was across 2 days, but I read the majority of this book in one day because I wanted to know what happened next. And it is so heartwarming. It is about a teenage girl who's going to Catholic school. She's really jealous of the one and only openly queer person in the school because she knows that she is queer, but she does not feel comfortable or safe expressing those feelings. This is basically her journey, her coming out story, her coming of age story. I laughed, I cried, I swooned. I loved it. Next, I will be talking about a nonfiction book, The Risk It Takes to Bloom. I read this one last year. It is about a Black trans woman who's also an activist. She talks about her gender journey, and then she also talks about the work that she is doing, and so many of the struggles that she has faced. And it's really interesting to see this story because it's also like an intersectional story. We have the intersection of race and gender and sexuality. And you know, I think it's really important in understanding like the full perspective of these things by reading stories from perspectives that are unlike my own. Next, I will be talking about Not for the Faint of Heart, which is a delightful young adult fantasy book. This story follows 2 characters. One of them is a healer and the other one is a part of Robin Hood's Merry Men. And the person who's part of Robin Hood's Merry Men end up kidnapping the healer, but the healer is super excited because Robin Hood and the Merry Men are her heroes. So she's like, oh my gosh, I actually get to meet you guys. And it's just delightful. And then whenever they decide to let her go, because they're like, oh, we didn't actually need to kidnap you, you're the wrong person, they decide to let her go. She just decides to hang around because, well, she wants to. It's so much fun, it's lighthearted, it's heartwarming, it's delightful. Next, I have another nonfiction memoir. This one's also a graphic novel. It is genderqueer. You might have heard about this one because this is one of the most frequently challenged books in the US. And it's quite sad that it's one of the most frequently challenged because it is, I feel like, such an important story. This is the author's gender journey. You know, it is Z's story discovering who Z is, and so much about like the tension between how you feel inside and what's expected of you societally, and just kind of feeling some incongruence with that, but maybe not exactly knowing what's the cause of that. Also, this was one of the first graphic novels that I read that I really enjoyed, and it's kind of helped me get into graphic novels more, because prior to that I tried a few and none of them really worked for me. So this one has been like inspirational to me on multiple levels, so highly recommend. Next, I will talk about the novella that I read last year. It is called Brighter Than Scale, Swifter Than Flame, which is a really hard title for me to remember, but the book well makes up for it. The book is gorgeous and lyrical. I don't even know exactly how to describe this book. It is about a dragon slayer who goes to a kingdom to help get rid of their dragon problem, and discovers that the people there don't actually think the dragon is a problem. This is also someone who lives inside their armor and won't take off their armor during normal situations. And there's definitely a lot of symbolism there about, hiding who you are, hiding your face from the world. I think it's called a sapphic romance, but I'm pretty sure our main character uses they, them pronouns. So, And finally, I have another nonfiction for you. It is called Fair Play. If you're interested in the gender and sports debate, I highly recommend this book. It is very well researched. It talks about so many different issues, from school sports to professional sports to everything in between. It goes into studies and what they have found. It really, really dives into the issues. For the vast majority of the book, the author tries not to give their opinion about things, but then at the very end, in the last chapter, the author's like, and here's how I think we should handle it. And honestly, I take a little bit of a different stance from the author, but mostly I'm much more optimistic in the author's wanting to work within the current system. This book was very eye-opening to me. Also, if you want a podcast on these topics, I recommend the Tested podcast. It talks about throughout history, how they have tested people's gender who participate in sports, particularly women who were too good, to see if they were truly women. And it goes so in depth as well on a slightly different angle, because Fair Play is talking specifically about trans people in sports, and the Tested podcast is often talking about women who have some differences of sex development. So definitely looking at it from different angles, but very much talking about the same thing, about how do we determine what is fair in sports. Also, both of them look at why we have gender segregated sports in the first place, and a lot of it's just sexism. Okay, and now I will talk about my TBR for the Trans Rights Readathon. And maybe I shouldn't call it a TBR, I should call it a pile of possibilities, because these are the possible reads. I don't have a lot of time to read. My reading's been terrible this year. I just haven't had time to dedicate to books and booktube and reading, which is why I've not made a single video this year, I don't think. And this is my first one. It's an important enough topic for me to make a video on. I have been reading some, but I'm going to try for this readathon to focus on short books. And I'm going to try to read 2 of them. So hopefully I will be able to do that over this readathon. If not, hopefully I will read all of these books within this year. Starting with Before We Were Trans. This is a book I actually started last year, and I was really, really, really enjoying it. I thought it was super insightful, and then I got sick for a few weeks, and my brain could not. So this is on my pile of shame, and I need to pick it back up again and finish it, but it was amazing. This is a nonfiction book. Oh, okay, so in the queer community, there is a lot of talk of not labeling people something that they have not labeled themselves. So if someone is trans or lesbian or gay or whatever, they need to have that journey themselves and announce it themselves. And we should not be telling other people that they are these things. Basically, don't decide for other people what they are. With that said, whenever we're looking at history, There's a lot of history where people didn't have the same language that we have today around gender identity and sexuality. And if we refuse to label anyone who has not labeled themselves, we end up looking at history through a very straight cis lens, and that's not accurate either. So this book really wrestles with that idea and talks about gender nonconformity in history, and I am so ready to get back to this book. Next book on my list is Melissa. This is a middle grade book. I actually remember when this book came out and it was like highly controversial and one of the most challenged books. And for some reason, I never read it. So it's also a short book. So it'd be a good one for me to read during the readathon. Next on my list is another nonfiction. It is a short history of trans misogyny. I've heard very many good things about this book. And yeah, sometimes people's issues with trans women particularly is just misogyny. I've heard very good things about this book. I'm super looking forward to reading it. This next one was not even on my radar, but then I was watching some YouTubers talk about their trans readathon TBRs and books that they recommend. And I was specifically watching Book Binge. What is the channel? Yeah, Book Binge. So I was watching Book Binge, and they mentioned People Collide, which is a literary fiction body swap book where a husband and wife swap bodies. It appears from reading the description that we are following the husband's perspective in the wife's body while the wife in the husband's body disappears. It sounds like it is going to be a really interesting exploration of like gender and everything. And I want to read this book now. And I looked it up and it is short. And now it's on my list. Am I going to get to it this week? I'm definitely getting to it this year. It sounds great. And the last book on my list is another one I also started and didn't finish because I've been really bad at reading books this year. This one was one that I started, I think in January, and then I started my new job and it just like, I wasn't reading anything at all. And I just put this book aside and haven't gotten back to it and I want to. So this is the Golden Boy's Guide to Bipolar. This is the companion / sequel novel to The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School. This is following the character in the Lesbiana's Guides to Catholic School's brother. So this book is featuring the brother and it's told after that book. I love the brother. He's one of the favorite characters from that book, but also I love the main character. I love the friend at school. Everyone's amazing. So I'm looking forward to getting back to this one. Anyway, those are my recommendations, my TBR. I will have all the information linked in the description, and let me know if you have any recommendations for trans books in the comments, and I will see you in another video, hopefully soon.